Privacy groups this morning are warning more than 100 million people about their cell phone carriers. Verizon and AT&T are tracking online activity with so-called super cookies. The companies can monitor and catalog the websites you visit. CNET's Tim Stevens is here. Tim, good morning. Wow, really surprising. I mean, we knew that there was virtually no privacy left anymore. What are these cell phone companies doing with our information?
Right, so they're creating what's called a super cookie, and I wish we were here to talk about heroic baked goods, but we're not. So this is basically, basically an identifier that's being added to your web traffic. So as you go from one website to the next, your phone is making requests out to pull information back. And when those requests go out, Verizon and AT&T are adding unique identifiers that identify you individually. And pretty much anybody on the web can look at these identifiers and kind of do a reverse lookup and figure out who you are and where you've been going across the web.
Is there anything you can do about this if you don't like it?
Unfortunately, not easily, no. Verizon does offer an opt-out, but the problem is while it'll opt you out of their advertising program, it doesn't actually stop them from putting this ID onto your information, which is a problem. AT&T's system, they said if you opt out, they will stop putting that ID on there, but ultimately there's no easy way to flip that off.
So help me understand why this is such a bad thing, because shouldn't you assume anytime you're on the web talking to anybody, buying anything, that somebody knows what you're doing and how you're doing it?
You probably should, yes. I mean, people are, I think at this point, used to the traditional sort of cookie, which is a small file stored on your computer. And those are used for some good things, like if you go to a website you visit frequently, it'll store your personal information, it'll store your login information, you want to type in your password every time. With these sorts of things, there's really no benefit to you. The only thing that these are good for is giving you better ads so that the advertisers make more money because you'll be more likely to click on them. So Verizon and AT&T will, in theory, get more money out of these services, but you don't really get much of anything in return.
I remember at the time of the Snowden discoveries, Edward Snowden, people from Silicon Valley were saying, if you only knew, I mean, we know so much more about you than was disclosed here.
Especially because these programs have been in place for a couple of years now, and really they're only coming to light at this point. So it is a little bit disconcerting that ultimately this has been going on for a long time now. AT&T is saying that they're just starting to test their program. I think at this point they'll probably roll it back.
I know you're a technology expert, not a lawyer, but I mean, does this mean that anybody, the government, could find out what I've been doing on my phone?
Certainly they could, especially if you're, for example, sitting in a coffee shop and you're surfing the web on an unencrypted connection. At that point, these IDs are kind of floating around in the air. Anybody else sitting in the coffee shop could be monitoring all the traffic and looking at all those IDs, and again, seeing exactly what website that you're visiting, even if they're not looking at your computer.
Is there some effort to restrict this in Europe?
These are U.S. carriers only, so they're only happening here in the U.S. But we do see other people are providing similar functionality. Apple, for example, has something like this built into their iPhones and their iOS operating system, which is available worldwide. There, at least, you can disable it and permanently disable it.
And what does Apple allow you to do again?
The same sort of ID. Basically, they have something called an IDF, which is an identifier for advertisers, which is built into iOS. You can go into the privacy settings on your phone and disable it, but it's the same basic ID. As you go online and surf around, that ID is being assigned to your web traffic.
Super cookies. Thank
Super
you.
cookies.
Yeah.
Super cookies.
Now we know.
Delicious.
I learned a new word today. Super delicious. Thank you, Tim Stevens.